Imagine a world at war, where entire armies clash across continents, and the fate of millions hangs in the balance. In this epic struggle, you'd expect the heroes to be generals with armies, pilots in dogfights, or soldiers storming beaches. But what if I told you that one of the most decisive victories of World War II was won by a man who never fired a shot? A man whose only weapon was his imagination. This is the story of Mieczysław Swojkowski, the Polish spy who built an empire of lies to bring down a real one. Our story begins not on the bloody battlefields of Europe, but in the sun-drenched, bustling city of Algiers, North Africa. It's 1941. France has fallen, and its colonial territories, like Algeria, are under the control of the collaborationist Vichy regime, which is crawling with German and Italian spies. For the Allies, North Africa is a black hole of information. They desperately need to know what the Axis forces are planning, where their troops are, and what their next move will be. But sending in spies is incredibly risky. The Gestapo's net is wide, and a single mistake means capture, torture, and death. Into this perilous environment steps a man who looks more like a mild-mannered businessman than a master spy. Mieczysław Swojkowski, a Polish army officer who escaped the fall of his country, arrives in Algiers with a new identity. A Polish industrialist manufacturing oat flakes. It was the perfect cover. Who would suspect a humble factory owner of being the linchpin of a secret war, under the codename Rigor, which means rigor in Polish? A fitting name for a man of such meticulous details. Swojkowski was given a mission by the Polish government in exile: build an intelligence network from scratch. The problem was, he had no agents, no resources, and no support. He was utterly alone in a hostile city. A lesser man would have given up. But Swojkowski wasn't a lesser man. He had an idea so audacious, so brilliantly deceptive, that it would change the course of the war. If he couldn't find a real intelligence network, he would simply invent one. This wasn't just about making up a few stories. Swojkowski began to construct an entire fictional organization. He created a web of imaginary agents, giving each one a name, a personality, a backstory, and a specific role. There was the disgruntled French officer who supposedly leaked naval secrets, the dockworker who reported on ship movements, and the talkative secretary in a German office who overheard sensitive plans. He wrote their reports, mimicked their different writing styles, and even created a system of sub-agents who would pass information up the chain to him. To make his network seem real, Swojkowski needed to mix his fabricated intelligence with genuine, verifiable facts. So, he became a master of open-source intelligence, long before the term even existed. He and his wife would spend their days walking through the city, meticulously observing everything. They counted military trucks, noted the types of aircraft flying overhead, and monitored the comings and goings at the port of Algiers. They listened to gossip in cafes and read public notices. Every tiny, seemingly insignificant detail was a piece of the puzzle. He then took this real, hard-won intelligence and wove it into the reports from his fictional agents. For example, if he personally observed 3 German supply ships arriving at the port, he would write a report from his dockworker agent claiming to have seen them. This made the agent, and, by extension, the entire networks incredible to his handlers in London. The British and American intelligence agencies, desperate for any information, started to trust Rigor's network. They didn't know that most of it was a phantom, a ghost army of spies that existed only in Swojkowski's mind. But here's where the genius of the operation truly shines. Swojkowski knew that the Axis powers were listening. He knew their intelligence services were intercepting coded messages. so he deliberately created messages he wanted them to intercept. He would send reports filled with subtly misleading information, carefully crafted to paint a false picture of Allied intentions. He might hint at a planned landing in one location while the real target was hundreds of miles away. The Germans, believing they were brilliantly decoding top-secret Allied intelligence, were in fact swallowing bait that Swakowski had personally prepared for them. They thought they were reading the Allies' mail, but they were actually reading Swakowski's script. The operation, codenamed Agency Africa, grew in complexity and influence. From a one-man show, Swakowski carefully recruited a small number of real, trusted local informants, adding layers of genuine intelligence to his masterpiece of deception. His network provided over 1,200 intelligence reports to the Allies, covering everything from Axis troop strength and supply routes to the morale of Vichy French forces. His most crucial contribution came in 1942. The Allies were planning Operation Torch, the ambitious invasion of North Africa. This was a massive gamble. If the Axis forces knew where and when the Allies were going to land, they could set a trap, and the invasion would be a bloodbath. The success of the entire operation depended on total surprise, and this is where Agency Africa became the key that unlocked the door to victory. Swakowski's network provided incredibly detailed information about coastal defenses, the location of minefields, and the political loyalties of local French commanders. He identified which French officers might resist the Allied landing and which might be persuaded to switch sides. This intelligence was pure gold. It allowed the Allied planners to choose the safest landing spots and to craft a strategy that would minimize casualties. Thanks to Swakowski's reports, the Allied commanders knew exactly what they were walking into. When the invasion fleet landed in November 1942, they were prepared. The landings were a stunning success, securing a vital foothold in North Africa and marking a major turning point in the war. General Dwight D. Eisenhower himself would later credit the intelligence from Agency Africa as being instrumental to the success of Operation Torch. Think about that for a moment. A massive military operation, involving over 100,000 soldiers and a vast armada of ships, owed its success in large part to the work of one man and his army of imaginary friends. While soldiers fought and died on the beaches, the silent battle of wits had already been won by a spy who looked like an oatflake salesman. But the story doesn't end there. The Allied victory in North Africa set the stage for another epic confrontation. The Battle of El Alamein. In the deserts of Egypt, the British Eighth Army faced off against the legendary Desert Fox, General Erwin Rommel, and his Afrika Korps. The intelligence gathered and disseminated through Swakowski's channels continued to play a role, giving the British commander, General Montgomery, a critical edge. Knowing Rommel's supply situation and troop dispositions, Montgomery was able to plan his counterattack with devastating precision. The crushing defeat of Rommel's army at El Alamein was another nail in the coffin of the Axis war effort, and Swakowski's invisible hand had helped hammer it in. And what's perhaps the most incredible part of this entire saga? The Germans never figured it out. They never realized that the sophisticated intelligence network they were monitoring, the one providing them with what they thought was priceless insight into Allied plans, was a grand illusion. They were so convinced of their own code-breaking prowess that they never questioned the authenticity of the source. Mieczysław Swakowski had not only fooled an empire, he had made the empire's own arrogance his greatest weapon. After the war, Swakowski's story, like that of many intelligence operatives, faded into obscurity. He received decorations for his service, but he wasn't a public hero. There were no parades for the man who commanded an army of ghosts. He lived a quiet life, his extraordinary contributions known only to a select few in the intelligence community. He was the man who had changed the world with a pen, a pair of binoculars, and a brilliant, deceptive mind. His story is a powerful reminder that warfare isn't just about brute force. It's a contest of intellect, deception, and psychology. Sometimes, the most powerful weapon isn't a tank or a battleship, but a perfectly crafted lie that the enemy believes is the truth. Mieczysław Swowakowski proved that a single individual, armed with courage and creativity, can indeed fool an empire and alter the course of history. The greatest victories are not always fought. Sometimes, they are written. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey into the shadows of history. If you enjoyed this story of espionage and ingenuity, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more hidden tales from the past. Let me know in the comments what you found most fascinating about Swowakowski's story. We'll see you in the next video.